Hello everybody, my name is Ricky LaVaughn, teacher at the Men's Bible Study Group at Worthington Church. In this particular video, we are going to cover the lesson number 1 from the book, Yet Will I Trust Him. There's a cover of it. It is of course a Bible study on the book of Job. Now the first lesson is actually called The Beginning of the Calamities, and it covers Job chapter 1 and 2. Now there are a variety of points and plethora of issues that are in this chapter. However, we're only going to cover just about 3 points, 2 to 3 points, just as a rough summary. But if you'd like to learn more, definitely pick up the book, get into the book of Job, and learn a little bit for yourself. Now, point number 1 can actually come from the book, from question number 1 and also question number 2. From the book, it states, describe Job's character, as well as what does the Bible say about Job's wealth. Now, we find both of those in Job chapter 1, verses 1 through 3. I just want to read just a few of the things what the Bible has to say. It says, there was a man in the country of Uz named Job. He was a man of perfect integrity who feared God and turned away from evil. He had 7 sons and 3 daughters. His estate included 7,000 sheep, 3,000 camels, 500 yoke of oxen, 500 female donkeys, and a very large number of servants. Something that was very important also said that Job was the greatest man among all the people of the East. And I liked how it talks about that because it says how even though he had money, he had wealth, and clearly he also had power, he also was there for the Lord. And he wanted to make sure to do great things for God. He was a good person. He was a person who was trying to do well. He was also someone who didn't allow his wealth to not necessarily influence him to do bad things or to try to get over on people or to try to be some horrible human being. Basically, Job was an upright, really good person, but his wealth wasn't necessarily the reason why he was good. The reason why he was good is just because he was just a person who really did love the Lord, who really did want to do great things for God. And because of that, he was blessed. Not necessarily he was blessed because he was good. It's just he was doing really good things, and then just a blessings was just following through. Sometimes we can also learn from that as well from this particular point, because what we definitely covered over was that even in our lives, there are times when God wants us to do good things, to be a good person, to be able to be the person that He would have for us to desire to be, in wealth and all that other stuff. That will come. You don't have to be the richest person or anything like that, but good health, great spiritual life, good family and friends, all that would definitely come. But most important thing is to be able to have that relationship with the Lord and then worry about all that other stuff. Now, a second point that we really covered dealt with more or less Satan and God. And what I'm trying to say there, as far as there was like this interaction between Satan and also between God. And there's actually even other beings that were mentioned about that was all coming together. That was found in more or less question 6 and 10. Kind of covers up both of those, where it says, in Satan's mind, why is Job being the good person? And then in question 10 it says, divine beings and Satan came to present themselves before the Lord. What does God say about Job, and what excuse does Satan give for his behavior? Now Satan, and the verses found for that is Job chapter 1 verses 9 through 11. And Job chapter 2 verses 1 through 6. And what Satan was basically at first saying was that, well, his wealth is the big reason why that Job was following God. And then turns around, and after some horrible things happened to Job, Satan then comes around and says, well, maybe it was his health. It was a big reason why that he was following God. And that led to the second circumstances of what happened to Job. So basically what Satan was trying to say was that it was through Job's wealth and his health the big reason why that Job was being so fervent and so loving with God. And what God was saying was that He knew Job's heart, and He knew that it had nothing to do with either. It wasn't because that Job was doing well. It had nothing to do with Job's money was doing well, that his health was on point. Instead, it had everything to do with that they had a loving relationship between each other. And that's a very key point that we can also learn from our lives, and state that we can't wait and then say, like, I want to be able to build a strong relationship with God if God blesses me, or if God gives me money, or if God does something like that for me. Sometimes you do see on the news, or we see on TV and stuff, where people are trying to make wealth the main go-to while trying to have a relationship with the Lord, compared to not allowing wealth to be the main thing. Instead, you just building a relationship with God, and then the wealth and all this other stuff can come later. But your main thing is, I'm not having a relationship with God for money. I'm having a relationship with God because I love Him. And that's a big reason why I want to be able to do this. Something that we can definitely learn from Job's character, and that's what God was trying to say to Satan in regards to Job. Now the next point that we definitely going to bring up basically comes to us from questions 8 and 11. And both 8 and 11 are both talking about describe or list the calamities that happened to Job. And what happened to Job, I could read it, but it's a little bit long, but it is found in Job chapter 1, verses 13 through 19, and also Job chapter 2, verse 7 through 8. And basically what it states that what happened to Job is that his oxen and his sheep got killed. There were some invaders and people that came in. They killed up some of his servants, and like only one even came to relay the message. Another thing that happened was that his children died due to a horrible storm. Many of his servants and other people was killed in a different incident. So what happens is that Job lost his wealth, his money, because at that time there was agrarian society. So fields and animals and that kind of things, that was really all your money was built into. So he lost his wealth. He also lost his family as far as his children. His wife still lived, but he did lose his children. So, he lost that. He's lost all 10 of his kids. And then in chapter 2, it goes into after Satan claimed that it was his health, he then began to have painful boils and blisters all over his body, which was horrible, painful, would make you sick. People wouldn't even want to look at you because you would look all messed up. So Job basically went from being one of the top people in his society. Just imagine whoever is the number one, the top person, whether it's financial or whatnot, in your society, in your city, state. I don't want to name any names. I don't want to put that out there on anyone. But imagine if you could, they go from being on top and they have everything. They have power, they have money, wealth, they have wonderful children, and then within like a few days or a day or so, they lose all their money, whether it's through stocks or through however. They lose members of their family. They even get a painful and a horrible sickness that inflicts them. All this happens really, really fast. I can only imagine the mindset of Job when he went through that. But just imagine if you or anyone else that you knew went through going from such a good area of life to a very bad area of life. Not over time and not slowly, but almost in an instant. This was really trying on Job, and this was really testing him in his balance with his relationship with God. But that was another thing that we definitely discussed and talked about, and was like, wow, think about that not only in our own lives, but people we might know, that we might see on TV, on the movies, or whatever, and you see a situation like that, and that happens to someone. Something bad, tragically bad, happens in a moment. One last thing that I definitely want to be able to say is that before giving you the personal question, just for something for you to think about, is God looked down upon Job and he saw someone who was worthy, that he knew could handle the extreme circumstance that Job went through. And I know we look at that and think, wow, that was a lot that Job had to go through. That was some extreme pain and some issues that he really had to endure. And the question is, if God looked down upon you, and I'm talking to myself as well, but if God looked down upon us, could he possibly say to someone, I trust them because I know them. I know that our relationship isn't built off of wealth, their health, or anything else. It's built off a bond that we have. And that if you was to go through things, does God know, without a shadow of a doubt, that he could trust you not to turn on him? Something kind of deep to think about, because that's the reason why Job even went through it. God knew that Job could pass this test. What does he think when he sees us? Can we pass a test? Can we do certain things? Where is our relationship truly, really and truly with God? And with that, I just want to leave you with a personal question, just a personal thought from the book, Yet Will I Trust Him? It is, God looked upon Job with favor, knowing that he was an upright and great person. Why then would God allow extreme pain to come to a loyal servant? It's something for you to think about. And if you'd like to know more, see more, and even really get into it, just pick up Yet Will I Trust Him. Go through this lesson yourself while you're reading Job chapter 1 and 2. Job chapter 1 verses 1 through 3. Chapters 1 through 3, and then also, of course, which is, of course, lesson 1. So as you can see, that was really something deep. Really something for you to think about. And if you'd like to learn more, be able to get deeper into it, for lesson 1, which covers Job chapter 1 and 2, definitely pick up a book, read for yourself, really get in there in there with the book of Job, and be able to have an understanding and a knowledge of, Lord, I see where what Job went through. Prayerfully, no one else have to go through anything of that extreme, but we all do go through various problems and situations in our lives that might come up. So here's hoping that everything is okay. Make sure to look at lesson 2, which of course is the very next thing that we did, and also something that we studied at the exact same day as we did lesson 1 for the men's Bible study group. Thank you and have a blessed day.